Welcome to Worthy the Podcast, where we have conversations about what it means to feel worthy and what happens when we don't. I'm your host, Jessica Raimondi. All right, welcome back to another episode of Worthy the Podcast. I'm really excited and grateful to have this next guest on. Her name is Olivia Allen. And Olivia is an actress. She is a spiritual psychologist, and she is the co-host of an amazing podcast called Broad Ideas.
Yes.
And also, she's an old friend. I'm here in LA, and I get to take this time with her to interview and talk and chat and catch up. So welcome to Worthy.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be with you.
I know, me too. So we go back.
We do.
We go back. I think it was 2012 when we met, right? That's when we started school.
I'm so not a date person.
Like,
whenever people are like, oh, that was in 2017, I'm like, I don't even know who or where I was.
Oh my God, no kidding. So we went to school together. We met in a school called University of Santa Monica, and this was a school centered around the program of spiritual psychology. So it was a really intense couple of years, but yes. So I think we graduated 2014.
Thank you. New information.
Yeah, graduates. And yeah, so we met there, and we I have my first impression of you, honestly. I totally had a girl crush on you. Definitely. I thought she was like the coolest. First of all, she's stunning. But I thought you were like the coolest girl. And we had, it was a really intense 2 years. We had we did a lot of intense healing on self. We learned to facilitate others. We learned amazing new skills on growth and self-actualization, a lot of spirituality. And I don't even remember. Do you remember our first interaction?
No, do you?
I know, not really.
Oh, I was like, oh my God, that would be amazing.
Yeah, was it in a trio maybe?
Probably, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I remember feeling instantly, we were just like simpatico.
Simpatico.
Yep.
Exactly.
We had the same vibe going on in life.
Totally. Yeah. I was we became kind of fast friends, and yeah, we kind of supported each other. You did a project with me that was so meaningful for school. So it was awesome. Yeah. What was school like for you?
Oh, school was, one, I can say, I think it is the second best decision I've ever made. So the first decision I made was getting sober and getting in touch with my intuition and my gut and starting to listen to that internal guidance system. So when I got asked about that school, it was just like a gut yes that was instant. And I think it changed my life on every level. One of which, I came out with a husband.
She did.
We didn't get married in the program.
I was going to ask, what was your takeaway from school?
It was a hot doctor.
Oh, shout out to Jeff. Yes.
Yeah. So it changed my life. But that being said, it's like, yes, I left the school with who would turn out to be my partner in life and the father of my children. But I would have never been open, ready, and available for that kind of relationship had I not gone to that school and done the work that we did that opened me up to having those new experiences.
Yeah, I hear that. How early in sobriety were you when you started school?
2 years.
2 years. And did you feel like it was kind of the next aligned step?
It was just not, honestly, it wasn't even a thought. It was just a yes. When I was asked about it by my friend Casey, it was just, yes, I want to do that. And what are the steps I need to do? Because I knew for whatever reason, that was the direction I wanted to move into and explore. So I would say, but when I first got there, I was 2 years sober and I still wasn't on stable ground with that. So I think doing that program helped me get stable with it because I was put in so many different situations that I was wildly uncomfortable with, and I got to learn it's okay to be uncomfortable. And I think 2 years of being uncomfortable that program.
Yeah. It was intense. It really was. I mean, I think we all just grew exponentially.
Yeah.
I remember calling my mom on the way home from certain nights we would meet once a weekend for about 10 months, and then we'd have like 2 months off, and this was for 2 years, right? Something like that.
2 years.
So we were kind of all in it together. But I remember calling my mom and being like, oh my God, I realized, you know, this and this is what was holding me back. And I'd have all these epiphanies. But one of the things I really took away from school was the language, and the skill set. So I'm forever grateful about that, because it was really the first time, it kind of like it was like the pre-birth of all the things I'm doing now, because I learned about self-worth, you know, and I learned about the language around limiting beliefs and all of that stuff that we moved through.
Big
and
time.
It was so freeing. What other than the husband, what was your biggest takeaway, you think, from there?
I mean, there's so many takeaways. I use the tools on a daily basis, and I forget the tools on a daily basis, and I come back to them. So it kind of did get seeped into every ounce of me, as far as like, I would say the biggest takeaway for me was that it's not what happens in a situation, it's how you relate to the issue is the issue.
So true.
That one really blew my mind, that like, yes, all of these things can be true. You can go through hard things, you can have really hard experiences, but the thing that matters most is, what's your takeaway? How are you relating to it? What are you making it mean? And then also, one of the biggest things, which I'm a big fan of, that I do constantly, is the inner child work.
Oh, yeah.
That changed my life. Like,
Agreed.
my internal voice to myself is completely different than it was when I first went to USM.
Yeah, I have goosebumps actually with you saying that, because it's really true. I remember having that compassion for the younger version of myself, and realizing, I remember one of the epiphanies, I think it was probably one of the practicum weekends, when it was just like really intense. We were there for 2 days. And being like, wow, you've been mean to yourself, right?
So mean.
Like, when we had to like identify the things I was saying, and then actually picture my younger self there. Yeah. Guys, you know, it was intense. But it was so eye-opening, because it's like, I wouldn't talk to a child that way.
I wouldn't talk to anyone that way.
True.
Like, truly. True. Like, I feel like on the outside I was so kind and loving and nice to other people. But then if I did something, I'd be like, oh, you should feel shame or embarrassed or guilt or this or that. And it's like, what?
The shame, right? I mean,
oh my God.
The piling it on. She was like doubling down every time. I'm like, yeah, I would never do that now. That's amazing. I feel like it was a gift. And I mean, so many great connections that we made.
Oh, yeah.
So going back to kind of really what the podcast is about, talking about kind of what I learned from school, this idea of self-worth and talking about worthiness, I thought we would begin with what your definition of self-worth is.
My definition of self-worth has changed dramatically over the years. I think that I used to have a concept of self-worth as, you're going to feel good all the time, and you're going to have a really high opinion of yourself, and you're going to know you can do hard things and all of that. And as I've really gotten deeper into self-compassion, I've realized that self-worth is doing things for yourself regardless of how you feel, right? So when we love someone, we don't do things based on how we feel in the moment. We do what's required and what's right. So say, for instance, if you have a loved one that's suffering, you're not just like, oh, well, I should feel really good about showing up for them.
True.
Right? But you show up for them.
Right.
Because that is the act of showing up. So to me, self-worth is the act of showing up for yourself, regardless about how you feel about it.
Wow. So it's almost a verb.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's how I feel. Because I think there's a lot of misconceptions that you're supposed to feel good all the time. And I think that's a crock of shit.
Thanks for bringing that up. Actually, thanks for saying that, because I think it's like, even with those, we did a lot of affirmation learning in school too. And I remember talking about, and now practicing affirmations, but being like, you know, it's like, I'm not trying to trick myself into feeling good now if I don't. You know, what's the truth behind that? You know what I mean? And I think it's okay to not feel good all the time. it can be a choice to say, I'm going to look at this differently, or I'm going to, choose to find the joy in the small things today or whatever. But it's impossible. And I think that really messes people up.
I think it does. And I think it's actually not a fair load to put on yourself or others, right? Like if I look at myself the same way, I would be there for my child. If my child's upset about something, I don't tell him, you shouldn't be. I would never say, you shouldn't be upset about that thing. I sit with him and say, tell me more. What is it making you feel? Right? And really getting curious about what's your experience. And then I will sit with him and be like, I get it. I've felt like that before too. So I'm not trying to fix it. I'm not trying to change it. I'm not trying to manipulate him into feeling different. I'm bearing witness to his experience. And so that's what I try to apply with my own self-worth, is not trying to change it, fix it, problem solve, but to bear witness to it and understand. And that acts as a kind of lubricant, if you will, for it to slip away. But the moment we come in and go, you should feel happy, you should feel grateful, you should feel all these things, you're basically taking the pattern and taking a hammer and nailing it in more, as opposed to just getting curious about it. And to me, that's an act of love, and that's an act of worth.
Well, don't we all want to feel understood?
Exactly.
And seen.
Yeah.
I think that's really beautiful what you do with your children, because I'm pretty sure that didn't happen with a lot of us growing up, with our parents. Obviously, there wasn't a lot of skill sets back then and knowledge and wisdom, but that's really beautiful. Do you think that, you look at you have your children, looking at them, do you think we're born with worth, or do you think it's something that's developed over time?
Oh, I think we're all born who we are. And I think that we interviewed someone on our podcast recently, and we talked to his mom, and I said, you have done a remarkable job with your son. And she goes, he just came wired that way. I just plugged him in. Oh. And I was like, that's it. So I think that my children came with an incredible amount of worth. I think it's the unlearning that happens through life that kind of chips away at that. And I think it's also a societal issue of what the outward projection of worth is and what we make it mean about ourselves.
So it's almost like reflected back to us in a way, like we can get that negative or positive reflection back to us.
Yeah. And then we start to make up our ideas about what that means to us based on that. And then we spend the rest of our life unlearning that.
I know. So it really is like, I think coming back to, I have found that, I learned that a lot over the years, is it's like, whoa, like I got tangled up in this like mislearning, or, miseducation or whatever, and having to like untangle these belief systems that came from, like, it's like, where did they come from, and then you're like, oh, that magazine I read.
Sure.
I can't imagine growing up with social media. We did not.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
No.
But like really this untangling, this, like, I was strangled by so much doubt in myself and so much, and it was very deep, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
It's very deep. It's like, it wasn't something I was aware of on the surface of how I was struggling with my own worth,
Yeah, but I do think I also don't think that's negative in a sense.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a very deeply human experience.
Yeah.
And when you meet someone that's never faced those kind of adversities and are like, no, I've never questioned myself, or I've never felt doubt or whatever.
That's my father.
You literally go, oh, there's a chip missing. There's something other there. There's something different.
I do.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting. It's funny that you brought that up, because Kemper and I have talked about, like this journey of self-worth, like, would be really interesting to talk to people that haven't struggled with it. And it's like, have they not?
I question when people do. I'm like, what?
I know. My dad's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, there's more here I want to unpack. Yeah.
Interesting.
And then actually we filmed a little bit of the documentary portion of kind of what I was working on. And I think a couple of my other family members were like, no, I never struggled with that but it's like maybe it's being phrased differently. You know, that's why I'm always interested in getting these definitions.
Yeah.
I think
it's interesting because I think some people don't. And that's why for me personally, when I did get sober, I went into a room of people that were all sharing the same experience. And I was like, oh, I thought that was like unique to me, that I felt these deep feelings of like shame. And growing up, I grew up with a mom that was an alcoholic. And I mean, she still is. She's sober now. But we didn't go on family trips or anything like that. But I'd say, pack your bags, we're going on a guilt trip. And I'd sit her down and be like, here we go. You know? And so I literally grew up with a mom that carried a lot of guilt and shame. And so I think some of those are learned behaviors. And some of them I think are just, you're just wired that way.
I agree.
You know?
My mom, I grew up with, my mom was not an alcoholic, but the adult child of them. And so it demonstrated a lot of those, even alcoholic traits in a sense of this, you know, and I think, I believe it starts with caretakers a lot, you know, like our reflection back and these coping mechanisms, these learned coping mechanisms, you know. I mean, addiction is in my family in different types of ways, not necessarily alcoholism, but they're ways of soothing. Right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that kind of things. We hit on a point before, it was like we were talking about something that brought up like confidence and then versus self-worth. And tell me what you think about this. I feel like this is something as we grow up, like we hear a lot about confidence, right? Yeah. And, you know, I remember my parents being like, you know, wanting to help me build confidence. And it was like kind of missing the mark there because I felt like it wasn't resonating with me. And I feel like I am very confident. You know, I feel like I was a very confident person out in the world, but inside, right, I was still struggling. How do you feel about those two things?
So I think confidence is overrated. I do.
You heard it here, people.
I really do. I think it's wildly overrated, and I think it's not. Listen, there's not a thing I've ever been proud of myself for that I felt confident about. So
wait, can we say that one more time?
Yeah, there's not a thing I've ever felt proud of myself for that I felt confident about. The things I'm confident about are very effortless. So I'm not like, yay, you did it. There's no, it's effortless. You're confident about it because you feel good about it. Great, who cares? To me, I think the bigger marker of success is courage, is to be courageous, is to do things you're not comfortable doing. And like, sure, through that, you'll probably gain some confidence, but that's not what's valuable. Like, it's more valuable to put yourself in situations that stretch you, grow you, change you. And no one really does that through confidence. Confidence is a result.
That's such a beautiful way to put it. I really never thought about that like that.
Yeah, it's not one of my, it's like one of my least favorite words. And if you think about it, like think about people you respect and you look up to. Most of the time, it's not because they did something that was really easy for them.
Yeah, right? No, it's true. I was going to say the things I'm most proud of is always pushing myself or being like, wow, I can't believe I did that. Right? You know, after, that was a dream. That was like something inside of me. And then I made that happen and it created, or I broke up with somebody and that was really like that I didn't want to, you know, or I had that conversation.
Right. And those are the things to me that
not
are
confident at all. Right?
No.
Yeah.
Think about it. Like the things that like you're really deeply proud of yourself for usually have nothing to do with confidence.
I love that. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I think it's just an interesting point. We were talking to another psychologist about this too, and I think it's something I want to explore more, especially even on here. It's just the difference between, because I think, you know, again, back to that idea of self-worth, it's really innate, right? It's really just it's within us, and it doesn't have to be like confidence is. Yeah, you can kind of be confident in a million different things, but it's the feeling inside and that we have for ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's just a really great point. So what has your kind of personal journey been like with your self-worth, well, let's not say confidence, but your own self-worth?
Well, I think that it's been and is an ever-changing, growing relationship. And I think that, I remember when I was a kid, my mom used to say, and she grew up in the program, in a 12-step program too. So it's like generational. So some of those things were seeped into me at a young age. But she would say, if you want higher self-esteem, do esteemable acts, right? And so I think it's interesting because I spoke with someone yesterday about this kind of thing. I think that I innately had a really good internal relationship with myself from a young age. And the discord that I was feeling was because that actually wasn't being reflected back to me in society. So it's not like I thought, oh, I'm such a piece of shit, or I don't deserve this. I was thinking, but I'm good. But I do deserve this. But why can't they see it, And so I think that relationship started to suffer when evidence from the outside wasn't matching what my belief of myself was on the inside. Right?
So well said.
And so I think the journey then has become to disassociate from the outside world in a sense of, how can I get to a point where I don't need that validation to feel whole? Like, I don't need you to tell me I did a good job to know I did a good job. Right? And so that's one thing. And then the whole relationship with self-worth, like I used to not treat my body well. I used to, put myself in situations that weren't safe. I think that there was a lot of what you would once, call low self-worth. But I don't think that that's what I felt inside.
I'm so glad that you just said that. It's like, I've never had anybody say that, and that's exactly how I felt. And I've never been able to articulate it until
good.
Now. So good job. No,
good.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because I think it is a it's like, I believe all my whole life was the same way. I was like, but wait, but I was good. But what's happening? Why do I feel this way? It almost was like this, like, fight against like my soul, like, right? Do you know what I'm saying?
100%.
And I felt it's very isolating too. And I feel like I'm just blown away that you said that. It's like absolutely perfect. So validating.
Right. I think
really
that hasn't been talked about that much, of the difference between when you actually do know you're worthy. And that's what's hard, is that you're like, but wait, why?
It's like, and then it's people or place, and then it's kind of like, once one thing gets in, you're kind of like, it opens the door for more, and you're like, well, I guess that if that is that way, then I must be this.
That's right. And so that's what I think happens is, I think our brains are meant to gather evidence to support a story. And so when you start to gather evidence and it doesn't match your internal story, you then start to create a new one, right? And so I started creating a story of, well, I must not be worthy, or I must not be what I thought I was, or the evidence is showing that I don't deserve a good relationship, right? And so then that became the story, was, well, I must not be worth it. Right. And I broke this down recently, which is like,
it's really beautiful.
It's interesting because it happened too with guys. Like, I used to despise if a guy liked me, and girls are like, what? Did not like it.
The minute. So did you ever like a guy though? Like,
I always loved guys, but only ones that didn't like me.
I was gonna say. So the minute they like you.
Yeah, but because what I realized later on in life, I was like, oh, I understand it now. Is because I felt there was something secretly wrong with me. And the guys that didn't see that, I didn't trust. I'm like, oh, they don't get it. They don't see. So therefore, I can't trust them. The guys that don't like me, I'm like, they get it. They get it.
What did you think was wrong with you?
I think growing up with two alcoholic parents and an alcoholic family, and I've shared before many of different things that signaled to a child, you guys are other. Like, just even on a safety basis, or like feeling like I shouldn't let other people know that they're so sick, or that they
I was going to say there's a lot of secrecy that goes around with that too, right? Did you have...
Yeah, we weren't like a secrecy family, but like, you know, the truth of the matter is there was rehab stints. There was jail. Like all my family ended up in jails and institution and death. Like all the things they say would happen. And so when you have a child in that kind of environment, there's signals of there's something wrong here. So when you're signaled that there's something wrong with your family and you are them, that is something that you take on and hide and try and pretend to be normal. Right? And so I was always pretending to be normal. And then once I woke up from that spell and realized, like, I don't need to be normal.
Yeah.
Their things aren't mine. Right?
How long did that take you?
33 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I think that was the secret I was holding, was that, like, there's something wrong with me.
Right.
And then once I said there's something wrong with me, that went away.
I know. Well, I asked because it's really interesting about like how this stuff translates into who we pick and who we're attracted to, who we let in our lives. And, you know, obviously history goes to show there's sometimes it's always kind of that attraction to the person that doesn't want you or whatever. Yeah. And it's interesting because I've never really looked at it that way. And it's like, maybe, you know, I think a lot of people can relate to feeling like, yeah, there's something that, like, that chase is attractive. But what's like, why am I chasing? Why do I feel like, why am I not standing in my own value and worth and them coming to me? Well, that's not as fun. Or that's not as exciting, but why? You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, well, because it starts with me and how I think we teach people how to treat us as well. And, and we also reflect to other people how we treat ourselves. Right.
Completely.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Like,
and I think that all it all shifts once you change your internal relationship with yourself. What you believe you deserve changes, what you desire changes, you know.
Yeah, what you're willing to even accept, right? You have no, like, time. It's like, you know, something I remember from school along this line, but I remember when I started to really crack open, and I'm saying during school, it was just around that time, but I became super sensitive. Don't still make sense in a moment, but I became super sensitive to, like, violence. And it was like I was like entering this new level where my body like didn't want that around, like that negative energy. So I think there's something to, once I really started to like figure out who I was and what was going on inside of me, it was like that just didn't resonate, you know. It was like, so I think that's what happens with growth, you know.
Yeah, you change. You do. You change from it, and your likes and dislikes change.
Absolutely. So I feel like we're both kind of big dreamers. We have big dreams. We've talked about that. I feel like we're both creative and always been one to kind of follow our dreams. Was there a time where, and I say that because you're doing so many great things right now. Yes. And I know we've talked about that even back then when we met. You know, we had big dreams, and we were at school to hopefully help see those through. Was there a time where or maybe during this time where you suppressed the dreams, or were you always somebody moving towards there no matter what was going on?
I don't think I ever actually suppressed my dreams. I think that I fell short on helping myself achieve those dreams.
Great way to put it.
You
Great
know,
reframe.
like the dream never died inside. So it was actually painful because a lot of times a dream would be active, but then the behavior didn't match it. And so whether for me, a lot of that had to do with alcohol and partying and all of that kind of stuff. But I've never once put my dreams on a shelf and thought, okay, you can get back to those later.
Really?
No.
That's amazing.
No, because I'm tortured if I don't. Like literally.
I've tried it and it doesn't work, just so you know.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Like I've tried exploring different things.
Yes,
but that's
same. But it's like you still got that.
Yeah,
that thing, that scratch. So you know, again, you're out here, you're doing this podcast, you're acting, you're producing. You know, is this your calling? Have you found like this? Is this your purpose? Do you feel like you're in alignment with the?
You know, that is the most confusing question to me. And
I mean, your mom as well, right?
Yeah, I don't. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
There's so many itches to scratch, you know,
We're multifaceted for sure.
I think that there's things that I am very naturally aligned with. I think that, like, for instance, like if I'm coaching someone or having these kinds of conversations or writing, or there's a certain flow when it comes to personal development, self-help, all of that, where I feel that I have a natural, innate ability to tap into source, whether that's channeling, whatever that is, feels very effortless. It's without effort.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's the other stuff, which is like the acting, where all the effort feels like it goes, in the sense of it's met with obstacles and challenges and rejection and pain and old sores and all of that kind of material, right? Yeah. And then there's the producing side, which is exciting and creative and all of that. So if you were to tell me just pick a lane, that would be really hard for me. So I don't really think I have a calling, if you will. I think that the only thing that I'm committed to is answering the call within. And so whether that day looks like this, or whether that day looks like doing a play, or they're all different at different times.
And they all feed you in some way.
They feed very different parts, though. If I were to just do one, I'm missing elements of the other.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Maybe it's the Libra in me. You know?
Yeah.
Like, because people have tried for so many years, they think this realm is my realm. Right. And they'll be like, you could this. And I'm like, that's cool and all.
This is one part.
But I'm like, but I love this too, you know? So it's been, I think, calling, purpose, dreams, that's been my biggest like Achilles heel in life.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So just, and is it more just like leaning into the acceptance of all these different facets of you, or just enjoying each moment as it comes?
Each one comes with its own set of enjoyment and torture.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the truth.
Listen, you're speaking to somebody who totally gets it. Like,
yeah.
I could, like, the thought of, I remember I don't know if I was writing about this or whatever, but I remember growing up and everybody like going to college for this thing that they wanted to study.
Yeah.
And right. And their major, and like, and then off they went, and then they went and got a job and their major, and then like these next things. And I was like, I could never do one thing. Like I was like, I couldn't even pick one thing to study.
Right.
You know, and it just, there was something about the way I operate too, again, like of just like, there's so many itches to scratch, to scratch. It's so true. And then even with me moving around, like the fact that I get to spend a month here or a month there now in Miami,
I love
a month
that.
it is fulfilling me on such a deep level.
Yeah.
But yeah, nailing down, like even thinking about like being somewhere permanently right now, I'm like, I can't do that right now. It's just not where my soul is right now. You know, so I think giving ourselves permission to let
it's okay.
It may be unconventional too. And I think for me, I really had a hard time accepting that part of me. So I really appreciate you again, giving me permission to, in the language around that. And I think it's very helpful to hear, because it's not like, why does one thing have to be all there is?
That's, and I've gotten very hung up in that in my own life. Like, I need to do this or that. And Jeff is the one who reminds me, my husband, every day, you can do both.
Wow.
He'll always be like, why can't you do both? And I'll be like, well, because, you know what I mean? Like, you got it. If you wanted it. And he's just like, do what you want. And the truth of the matter is, I've envied people that are just like, oh, you have one thing and you're just going to do that. And
right.
What, are you content?
Yeah.
Like,
no, it's exactly right. I literally grew up envy. I was like, oh, it must feel so nice.
yeah. But then there
again,
is acceptance of like this. We just signed loan docs on a house. We just bought a house. And my son goes, you're a move-aholic, Mom. And I said, you know what?
It's so...
I am. And Jeff goes, how long do you give us in this house? I was like,
wait, like we're gonna put it on the recording now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's like, when, like, he said something like, well, I guess this is where we live now. And I was like, for now. Like, I'm not a rooter. Like, I don't want to root.
I know. It's interesting because lately I've been feeling it more. I think also being divorced and like getting into your 40s and thinking like, wow, I was supposed to at least have that, you know?
Right.
Like, which again, for better or worse, no pun intended, but it was like, yeah, there was an element of safety and calm and, you know, togetherness and connection that feels good with like building a life with somebody.
Yeah.
But when that's done and you're like, wait, now what, you know? But lately I've been feeling a little bit more called to root down, but it's like a root that's gonna be there, but I'm
little
also
baby
gonna,
like, it's called a sprout.
Yeah, it's
I'll sprout over
exactly.
there. But that, like, I think it's all periods. Like, you can root somewhere for a little while and then you can move on, and not everybody's the same.
No, I know, and I think expectations can really, you know, and I think it's even back to like the self-worth stuff when we look around and we judge and compare.
Brutal.
Right? It really is. It's like, wait a minute, that's not my path. I was not born into this world to live this linear path. You know what I mean? To this conventional path. It just never was going to happen.
Right.
You know, and I think something that I loved about living out here and all the different spiritual communities was finding those people that feel the same way, you know, and make me feel like we're doing right now. Like, it's okay to be me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I do think environment plays into that.
Oh, I do. This is my happy place.
Yeah. So root here for a minute. Just a little bit.
It is definitely in the works. I mean, it is definitely going to come into a nice like half and half at the very least, because
that's ideal.
I know, it's so happy here. And then we can play in Miami.
You know who's in Miami is Libby.
No.
Yeah, they moved there.
Really?
You got to
I
connect
haven't
with
talked
her.
to anybody from school in a long time. Okay, guys, we're coming for you.
Yeah.
That's so funny. All right, yeah, you don't have to put us in touch. All right, so I want to ask you, I want to get into intuition just a little bit. And I think it's right along with what we're talking about. Like, how important, like, has your intuition been in leading you in every moment? Because I think, I just did this post on intuition versus fear. And I think we all have it, right? And I think it's helpful to hear about what your experiences, you know, or our experiences with that.
Yeah.
For others.
I think that intuition is available to all of us. Yeah. I think the work is unraveling the things that bury it and hide it from us. But I think that we all have built-in intuition. And I think there's a huge difference between instincts and intuition. And our instincts are the animal part of us that is there to detect a tiger in the room, is there to keep us from falling when we, you know, cross the street. So our fear, our instincts are there to serve us on so many levels. But they're not the same as our intuition. And the way that I've learned to differentiate the two is intuition will never speak through fear's voice. So intuition will always speak through clarity's voice. So if you're ever questioning, is this my instinct or my intuition? The way to do that is to listen to the way it makes you feel. Do you feel clear? Do you feel calm? Do you feel grounded? Or do you feel fear? Because if it's
anxiety,
all of that's instincts. So, and that doesn't mean ignore your instincts, but it's learning what those instincts are designed and there to do. And most of the time the instinct kicks in to keep you safe.
Right.
And so you could have a big dream and your instincts will kick in and be like, no, you shouldn't do that. You're going to look stupid. Da, 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 da. And so they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're trying to keep you safe.
Of course.
But
Actually, a
that's
very innocent job, you know?
Yeah, but that's not your intuition. Your intuition is that still quiet voice inside that's unwavering. And so I think the work of the human is kind of learning to decode the difference between the two.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I think we often, and have there been times for you where you've heard the intuition and then done the other thing?
Duh. I mean, of course, because I'll listen to my instincts instead of my intuition.
Or because the intuition for me, it's like, I don't want to do that.
Well, yeah.
Because that means I lose that, or I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you talk yourself out of it, or fear yourself out of it, or even distract, ignore. I mean, there's been a voice that comes in for years now that's very clear and very succinct, and it says to me to write a book. And I haven't written a book.
And you're like, shut up.
And I'm just like, okay, right? But it's clear.
Yeah, but I think that's...
It's not you should, or it's none of that.
And it's just persistent, right?
Yeah, it's just write the book.
Write the book.
Write the book.
Write the book.
You know, and I'm like, no, I don't want to. Like, right? So that's an instinct. I mean, that's an example of there is an intuition I'm currently ignoring.
I love that. I love that you can share that. I think it's so relatable. Yeah. I do. Because there's people like, yeah, God, same, you know? I think it also is, our intuition calls us to kind of face, am I ready to level up? Am I ready to step into the person that this new thing is going to require me to be? Right. And I think there's a lot of responsibility in that creates the fear, you know, in a way.
Yeah.
Like, what if you wrote that
resistance,
book? Right? Because, like, what if you wrote that book? Then what?
Right. I don't even, yeah. I mean,
you know, then you might help people. Then you might get bored.
Not help people. I don't want to help people.
I know, right?
No, but it's also, it's like, I think, and I was saying this to a client recently, like, how often have you felt resistance on things that are bad for you?
Never.
Right?
Never.
Like, no resistance.
It's like, no, this is
zero. I'm like, yeah, let's go. But when we have resistance around things, they're typically good for us. Yeah. Which is so dyslexic.
It's
right?
It's really interesting. But I think, do you think it goes back to that, like, I'm not ready, feeling like, why do you think that is?
I really think it's the brain doing the brain's job. Yeah. I think the brain is designed to keep us safe, and it's looking for any perceived harm in order to keep us alive. And so the brain is just doing its job. We just give it so much power and we buy into it versus really hearing it and being like, okay, I see what you're doing. You're signaling to me to stay safe. I am safe, and I'm going to do this. Like you would talk to a child.
So it's like reparenting a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say, how do you move through that? So, and then is that where courage comes in, and then doing the thing anyway?
And contrary action.
Yeah. Can you explain what contrary action is for
doing the opposite thing of
the thing
the thing you want to do the opposite?
It's usually a good roadmap.
Yeah, contrary action I think is one of the biggest game changers, because the things usually that we resist that are good for us we don't want to do, and so contrary action means do the opposite of what you want, in a sense of like, okay, for me in this, like if I use the writing a book as an example, the contrary action would be, okay, you don't feel like it, but you're going to set an alarm and you're going to write for 1 hour. That would be a contrary action to what I'm feeling.
And it also is like an action of self-worth.
Big time.
Too.
Yeah, and I do have 79 pages. It's not like I don't listen to it.
Miss.
I honor it. I just don't like prioritize. You know what I'm saying?
Like you're not calling yourself a writer right now, or are you?
No, I mean, I write on all different types. Like we have projects we're writing. Yeah. We have, like, I feel very much like a writer in those ways, but I'm not like, I'm a writer, you know?
Yeah. Well, I can't wait for this book. I don't know about you guys. No, I think it's a really good example. I think it's really helpful, because I think part of why I'm doing this podcast is to highlight, to shine the light on these kind of like inside conversations we have with ourselves, and have people be like, oh, they're, you're not alone. We're feeling that too. I would say we're in this together. It's just really helpful.
I'm curious what your
what my
don't sit down with a podcaster. I'm curious about what self-worth means to you.
Oh God, no one's turned that back on me yet, believe it or not. Okay. I loved the idea of it being an action. I've learned a lot from taking action in general, but I think it is an innate knowing that no matter who or what is around me influencing, no matter of any outside influences, that I know and trust that I have value in this world, and that I don't need anything else to show me that, to prove me that. And I will say mine has developed over the years, right? I have a stronger relationship with it now. Sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes
Sure.
I don't. But I was basically like an only child. So I had to provide a lot of safety for myself, and I didn't like it. I'm a connection person. That's why I love doing this as a job. And so I tend to get very lonely. And that loneliness really made me, reach out and make choices all through from childhood, whatever. So that fractured my self-worth, actually. And I learned to abandon myself. So really it's like, I try to think of self-worth as, for me, like anchoring inside of myself, and providing that safety within, truly.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Not
love
just
that.
saying it.
And I love that you say it's an action too.
That's from you.
No, but like,
good combo.
because if you look at love, like it is an action.
I say that all the time. I love that.
It really is. And
We had another guest on that said that too. It's
yeah.
beautiful.
And it's like, I try to point out to people all the time, like, what you think about yourself actually doesn't mean as much as what you do for yourself. So there can be people that be like, oh, I suck, or this, that, and the other. But yet you're on a call coaching with me. That's an act of self-love. You put yourself in a position to seek help. Oh, you went to the gym today? Oh, you showed up for yourself there too. And you work and you provide and you put food. Like, if you were caring for someone else and showing up for someone else the way you do for yourself, you'd be like, holy crap, that's a lot of love. So I don't think, like, I can love my mom with everything in my heart and she can still annoy me.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right? So you can still annoy yourself and have self-love. It's not about the way you feel. Just like love isn't. Because you're going to feel all kinds of messy ways in love.
Yeah.
And that doesn't extract the most important thing.
I agree. I think action is really underrated too. I think learning that, I've been an Allen on a long time, and I think just taking the right action steps, it's like it has really built my worth over time. Because one thing, I may not be able to control everything that's going through my mind or be in a place where I can reparent myself at the time or in the mood, but I do take care of myself.
That's
know what
loving.
I mean? Right. And it's like I've not done that, and I can harm myself in other ways. We all can slip back, but I do try to, take those. It always feels good. I think the action steps feel good.
Yeah.
Kemper always says bird by bird. Kind of one thing one step at a time.
Yeah.
With that, but yeah, I agree. All right, so you are amazing. I'm just so happy that you're here. Like, really, like, I feel like you've enlightened so much, but you've given me, and I hope others, like, just a lot of permission to feel and to be who we are. And that's a real gift. So I just want you to know that.
Well, thank you. And that's what you're doing.
Oh, thank you for reflecting that back.
Yeah.
So last couple of questions was
Yeah.
just, you're this multifaceted woman. You're a mom, you're a podcaster, you're out there. We've talked so much about kind of outside pressures and things like that, and just being a woman and carrying the weight of being a woman, a mother, a wife, like just how, like, can you just share? I always just thinking about like the young women listening that, you know, are in their 20s, early 30s, like how do you navigate all of it?
Being a woman?
Yeah.
I love being a woman. I really do. I've never, like, I take no issue with it. Like, I feel I'm exactly who and where I'm supposed to be. I don't feel any sort of pressure I feel at this point in my life is all internal. I don't feel a societal pressure. I really don't. Like, I feel secure in the fact of, like, sure, there's things that are different as far as like aging as a woman and all of that. But I do feel a shift in that. I feel a shift in female voices, and I feel very grateful that I am a woman in this world and that I do so many different things and that I've put myself in in a space too. Like, nothing in my life was handed to me. So everything I look around and see, I created, and I love that. Like, I love it. Like, I came from nothing, you know? And so to have a relationship and children and a home and like a partner where we co-create together and keep expanding, and, you know, my podcast and like, it's all good. Yeah. You know?
That's beautiful.
Perimenopause is a thing, but
it's a freaking bitch.
That's a thing. But yeah,
but we're holding space for that as well.
But I love being a woman.
I do too.
I think that one thing I would say to younger girls is I do think there's like all of these misconceptions about aging and this, you know, obsession with youth and staying young and looking young. And I think all that's great. I think that the biggest, it's all great in the sense of like, it is what it is, right?
Yes.
But I think that when you look at it in a more holistic, like health is your wealth outlook, and I'm not trying to stay young anymore. Like, I like the age I am. I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, think it gets better and better and better. And I would not go back to my 20s for anything. And it's so weird that people don't want to age. And then you get to that age and you're like, I actually feel more comfortable than I ever have. Yeah. So I think it gets better.
I agree with you 100%. You know, and so I would say look forward to it and do it gracefully too, for sure. So, okay, what is Olivia's superpower, you think?
Do you know what my superpower is?
I can't wait.
I think this is a superpower. I love people. I love them. I'm fascinated with them, whether it's their stories, whether it's reflecting back to them what I see in their stories, the human experience. I think my superpower is being a curious person by nature.
I love that.
What's yours?
That. Compassion.
Oh. I like that.
It is. It's a good one. I like it too. I think both of ours really are playing into purpose in our lives, for sure. I have to be careful with compassion though, because I can have
it means to suffer with.
Yeah, right. I learned that in school.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, passion means to suffer.
Yeah.
Right. But it also can create self-abandonment for me when I have too much for others.
Yeah.
And so I've been working on that a lot, like knowing what's mine and what's there.
That's a big one.
Yeah, because I feel like I've been here. I see why everybody does everything. It's so hard for me to judge and be mad at anybody because I know why they do the things. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, 100%. People will be like, "Are you serious? You're still?" I'm like, forgive them. They know not what they do, and literally,
it's so hard for me. But to the point of what, you know? And so I just have to have boundaries with it. And that is something that is still a work in progress for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I love people too, a lot.
I do. I love people.
I love them. Okay, and last question. What is your motto?
Fuck it. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that could be our Fuck It Fridays.
Fuck it. Yeah. No, my motto is, I don't know if I have a motto. It changes all the time. It does.
That's okay.
Like, no. I don't think I have one. I think I have many. I think that this is a sweet little thing that I'll give you is that we had an actress, Gina Rodriguez, on our podcast, and she told this story about how when she was young, her dad was like a coach, maybe for boxing or something, and he would have her look in the mirror every day and say, "Today is going to be a great day. I can and I will." And she said it would then come up in her head in situations. She would get annoyed, like, really? And he'd be every single day. And so she said then she'd be in situations where it would just come in and go, "Today's going to be a great day. I can and I will." And so she started a production company called I Can and I Will. And so
love that.
I loved it so much that I brought it to Jeff and the boys every single day. Every single day, my older son, we look at each other, I say, "Today," and he goes, "Today's going to be a great day. I can and I will." And usually I prompt him. Today we walked into school and he prompted it. And I was like, oh my God.
Such a proud moment.
So I'm going to go with that because I can and I will.
Well, with that, everybody, I mean, Olivia Allen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So nice to be able to spend time with you. I'm really, really grateful. And we will see you guys on the next episode.
See ya.
See ya. Thanks for listening to this episode of Worthy the Podcast. Our goal is to build a community, and we do that through people like you who listen, subscribe, and most importantly, share with someone you care about. Be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening, as well as our YouTube channel. And if this episode resonated with you, leave a review. We want to hear from you. Thanks for being here, and remember, you've always been enough. Period. This podcast is meant to inspire and educate, but I am not a licensed therapist or medical professional. Everything shared here is based on personal experience and perspective, so take what resonates and leave the rest.